I'm Jeff Matlow. Welcome to the best leadership podcast ever. Welcome back to the best leadership podcast ever. My name is Jeff Matlow. I'm a three-time entrepreneur, executive coach, author, and public speaker. I believe that self-doubt is the enemy of growth, and I help executives and entrepreneurial founders conquer that enemy. This podcast and everything I do is focused on inspiring people to be better leaders. I hope you like it. And hey, if there's anything I could ever do to help you, reach out to me, leadership@bytitleonly.com. But first, let's talk about why you should ignore your boss. I don't know if you know this, but in Portugal, it's illegal for employers to contact employees after work hours. What a concept, right? I know. The law is called the right to disconnect. It says that employees have the right to refuse to monitor, read, or respond to contact or attempted contact from their employer. Portugal wasn't even the first country to pass this law. I just really want to go there, so they're the one I'm mentioning in case anybody from the Department of Tourism is listening to this and wants to pay me to come out to Portugal and do a podcast and write about it. France was actually the first country to enact the right to disconnect. They did it back in 2017. As of today, the right to disconnect law is also in place in Italy, Spain, Australia, Ireland, and Ontario, Canada. And from what I hear, Belgium and Kenya are about to approve it as well. Honestly, I'm surprised Finland and their Scandinavian brethren haven't adopted the law. Then again, they probably don't need a law to enforce common decency, since Finland just cemented their title as the happiest country on earth for the 7th year in a row. And though this podcast is listened to by people in countries all around the world, most of the listeners are based in the US, so I have one important message for all you Americans. Don't hold your breath. We used to have more boundaries in the United States. That's changed. When it comes to work and life, the idea of a 9-to-5 job started to dissolve about the time when the BlackBerry rose to power. But the last fraying thread of work-life balance that we were grasping onto, that thread was snapped when smartphones became ubiquitous. Now, thanks to the iPhone and Android, we're connected to everything, everywhere, all the time. Communication is easier than it has ever been in the history of humanity, and that's both good and bad. A recent study found that 70% of U.S. workers say that their boss contacts them after work hours at least one time each week. The study also found that workers assume they have to respond faster to those communications that are sent at night. That means when an after-hours email or text comes in, we perceive it to be more important than work hour communications, and as a result, we feel we need to respond faster. This is bad, like really bad. The thing about getting work communication after work is that it sets an expectation. The expectation it sets is that there are no boundaries. And with a lack of communication boundaries, it means that any moment, day or night, you could get blindsided by a work emergency. That's scary. This constant fear inevitably leads to higher levels of stress and anxiety. And with greater stress comes worse sleep, and with worse sleep comes all sorts of other problems. I know, I've been there. The anxiety of barrier-less communication often results in people constantly checking their phones right before they go to bed and as soon as they wake up. Is that you? Does that sound familiar? Because I'm sure you know there's a cajillion studies that will tell you not to do that. And there are 0 studies, at least that I'm aware of, that will tell you that the behavior is okay. But we are now conditioned to constantly check our phones for work-related communication. The thing about this is that the increased stress and anxiety still exist even if you don't answer the after-work communication. So all you leaders who are telling your staff to just ignore my messages until the next day, you're not doing anybody any favors. You're still the problem. You see, people who send communication after work hours tend to underestimate the stress their communication causes to the recipients. And at the same time, receiving communication outside of work hours makes the recipient overestimate the urgency of the message. The simple fact that you're sending the note at night gives it a perceived urgency. That perception, the perception alone, is what causes the stress. Anxiety increases because we feel we need to reply faster to after-work communication. It doesn't even matter what the email says. The problem isn't what you wrote, it's the time you decided to send it. Hey, if you think the US federal government is going to pass the Right to Disconnect Act anytime soon, you're either an eternal optimist or completely deranged. As I already said, don't hold your breath, because it's not going to happen. Also, you'll suffocate. It's more likely that an uber-liberal state like California will pass the bill, but that won't happen either, so don't keep your hopes up. Change is not going to start with the state. It has to start with companies and individuals. It has to start with you. So here's what I want you to do. Tell your employees and colleagues that you won't send any messages after work and ask that they commit to doing the same thing. And you guys should set a time limit, say 7 p.m. So after whatever time you set, only immediately urgent communication is allowed. And by the way, make sure you define what is urgent. For instance, your website going down, maybe that's urgent. Balance in life is more important than ever right now. Giving people the right to disconnect is a little thing that you can implement immediately as a way to let everybody get more emotional stability. So don't be that person who causes stress for no reason whatsoever. Let your employees disconnect in peace. It's the right thing to do. If you like this, if it resonates with you, please give us a 5-star review. Click subscribe so you don't miss another episode. My name's Jeff Matlow. This is the best leadership podcast ever. I appreciate you. I'm grateful that you're listening to this, and I promise not to communicate with you after 7 p.m. I'll talk to you next time.